Welcome to Sex and Happiness with Laurie Handlers. Amazing sex and intimacy are just around the corner. While Laurie puts the finishing touches on her new book, Sex and Happiness Over 60, please enjoy this show. It's one of her favorites from the Sex and Happiness archives.
We're going to be talking today about connecting the cock to the heart. You know, heart-cock connection. And I'm going to be speaking with one of my dear friends, Tyran Mowbray, and we're talking about something that I believe Tyran is an expert at. And we laugh about it sometimes because I always say to Tyran that he's my hope for men. So Tyran, welcome to Sex and Happiness.
Thanks, Laurie. It's great to be here.
Yeah, it's wonderful. It's great to have you. And, you know, I invited you on the show this time now, actually, because of some rants you were going on Facebook recently that I saw. And they had to do with men and vulnerability and still being a man, like being a man who's able to cry, being a man who's able to say his feelings, being a man who's able to be transparent about who he is and also still be powerful. So before we talk directly about that, how did you start out? Like, how did you get to be a guy who's like on Facebook and Instagram and sort of traveling the world and knowing about how it is to be powerful, but also how to be vulnerable? Like, did you start out like this? Did your parents raise you like this?
They tried. I guess you could say I was lucky in some regard. I had a very loving, emotional mother, and I had a very hard, determined father. And I guess because of that experience, you know, I was kind of initiated into strong, hard masculinity by my dad. You know, don't cry, get up, push hard, work hard. Yeah, you know, drink a lot, party hard, like those types of things. You know, my mum calls my dad Peter Pan. You know, he's the boy that never grew up. You know, he's 50 something years old now, and he still does what he did 30 years ago. And my mum is like, she's just this devotional ball of love that just accepts everyone as they are. And, you know, I definitely got my mum's heart, and I definitely got my dad's balls, I guess you could say. And, but I was torn, you know, having that heart, having that soft, tender heart, falling in love very easily when I was young. You know, I used to plaster my walls with I love LF or CK or whoever it was that month or that term at school. And so I always had this big heart where I loved to love, and I loved to feel special and wanted and help other people feel like that. But quite often was rejected a lot in those early days. And yeah, as I matured, I grew up into this more, you know, footy playing kind of, I don't know how to say, like footy playing, our beer drinking, drug taking kind of man that just, you know, just did his thing. And yeah, and you know, and I was celebrated for that at my football clubs, and my dad always congratulated me when I got really, really drunk, or when I said that I drank a lot of alcohol. And, you know, it was a big initiation to be able to go to the pub with my dad and his mates. They used to go to the football and get into fights. And it was, so to be one of the boys was like, it was something I always yearned for, but it never fully felt 100% me, you know? And then at the same time, not like being too soft, being too gentle, like being too emotional, crying when there was a movie on, felt really emasculating. I can't remember how to say that word. Anyway, like it felt really like immature and soft and weak. So I was always torn between these two places, and my desire to be a man, you know, be the provider and do this and do that, sent me down some very unethical paths. And, you know, I did a lot of bad shit. I sold drugs. I, you know, wrote my car off drink driving 3 times. When I had friends in the car, I used and, you know, emotionally abused women, manipulated them to, you know, get sex and then kind of shut them out pretty quickly afterwards. And I just, I had a really closed heart, and, I was cheated on when I was 16 by my first girlfriend. And so from there, I just kind of shut women out. And I worked in construction. I played footy, I was just your everyday guy. And then I had my first relationship at 23, like my first real, somewhat long-term relationship.
Yeah.
And that took me to a depth of intimacy that I hadn't experienced before, this actual devotional love to some extent. And it was beautiful. And then, we broke up and we had our issues and stuff. And again, I got really heartbroken, and she had a new boyfriend a few weeks later. And so I felt betrayed, and I shut again, and I shut harder this time than I did the first time when I was 16. Yeah. And I was hell-bent on revenge, but revenge wasn't, on her. It wasn't, it was just hell-bent on women. And I went and worked out in the mines. I drank myself into oblivion. I was going to the gym twice a day and doing all the protein, creatine stuff to get big and strong. But my heart was just ignored and shut down and completely not allowed space because it was too hard. It hurt too much. Yeah. Loving hurt. That was my association. To love someone meant to be hurt. So why would I do that? And then it got to a point where I had a breakdown. I was, having sex with lots of girls on Tinder and going out all the time drinking. And I got to a point where I was masturbating to porn 4 times a day out in the mines. And I couldn't get an erection without a woman or pornography.
Wow.
I was 27 years old, and I kind of realized, I was like, this is not okay. Yeah. This is not normal, and if it is normal, it shouldn't be. It's not natural. It's not natural to, at 27 years old, to not be able to get an erection without porn or a woman.
Correct.
And so, this kind of kickstarted something in my mind of like, I have to change something, because like, what the fuck does this mean for me in 10 years or 20 years? Mm-hmm. I started my own journey around my sexuality, and I stopped watching porn, and I stopped masturbating for a little while, and that kind of rebooted my system. And then, different things happened. I went to Thailand for a friend's wedding, and I went, I knew what was going to happen, and I was like, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to go and have my own 11 days there and train for Muay Thai and do this and do that. And I did that for the first 10 days. And then I went to Koh Samui for the wedding, and the rest of my trip turned into a 3-week bender with all of my friends. We went to a full moon party. We did all the things that you do in Thailand as a young Australian and international like boy or youngster. And it got to my last day in Thailand. I was there by myself. I was like, right, I'm going to go to the bar. I'm going to have some drinks. I'm going to meet some people. It's my last night. Everyone else had left. All my friends had gone. Mm-hmm. And I went down there and I had 2 drinks. They were really strong, because I was like, I've been drinking for 3 weeks. I need more alcohol, because I'm going to, I've built up a tolerance and all that shit, all this ego macho stuff. And I just got really drunk really quick. And these voices started in my head, and I started judging everyone down at the beach, and I started comparing myself. And I was like, I was going crazy basically. And, I couldn't get past this point in me that was like, you are miserably unhappy and you're still doing the same thing. And, so I walked down the beach to a different bar. I was like, I'll change my environment. I'll go to a different bar, and I'll just walk straight up to someone the first moment I get there and talk and break this bullshit. And I didn't. I got to the next bar and I froze, and I sat on the couch, and I felt like everyone was looking at me and judging me, and I was judging them. And I basically had a breakdown. I basically just had a mental breakdown. I was obviously coming down off of a couple of weeks bender in Thailand and a cocktail of different concoctions, and I just cried, and I cried for a day and a half. I cried for the rest of the time that I was in Thailand. It was like a day and a half, and I just hated my life. I hated me. I hated the man, this so-called man at 27 years old that I was representing. It was nothing like I wanted to be. And I knew it known it for a long time. The friendships that I had, I wanted more from my friendships. I wanted more from this, but I was just seen as Tyran, the party guy, or Moby, invite him out for a good time, but don't really ask him for anything because he's not on an emotional level that will meet you. And I knew that I was, but I never showed that to anyone.
I just want to say to you, I mean, it sounds like it sounds like you brought this all to a perfect storm.
Yeah. Just before 28, the Saturn return, if you believe in astrology.
You amplified your pain and your suffering and your bullshit just loud enough and deep enough and dark enough to kick your butt.
Yeah. And I mean, I definitely, there were moments when I thought about death and thought about who would care, who would care if I died right now, I don't like myself right now. So why the fuck should anyone else like me? Right. I definitely had those thoughts, but I don't know. I never got to any action steps, which I'm very happy about. But yeah, and it, thank you. And it turned, I got to a point I was like, I need to change something. I can't continue doing this. And I went back to the mines and I was walking off the bus and we're all in a big line, 50 people on a bus, and you get out of the bus and you'll walk to your little room and you're all like ants in an ant line. And I just stopped. I was like, and three guys hit me and what are you doing? And I was like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. Like, what am I doing here? I hate this job. I hate this environment. Why am I here? And so I rang the boss and I quit and I flew home and I went back and I moved in with mum and dad for a little while. I bought a one-way ticket to Europe because I knew that I could not survive where I was with the environment that I had. And what I had created for myself was not what I wanted, but I didn't know what I wanted. And I didn't have any points of reference in my life for people that had anything that I wanted. Like I had some guys that had some things, but they all represented for me a pretty immature masculine energy. And there was no one that really inspired me. And, so I just left. I left for 13 months and, did my gap year at 28 years old and learned about myself.
Is that when you say gap year, is that the thing that happens to people who were part of the British Commonwealth at some point?
Yeah. So the gap year is usually what a lot of young people do. They finish school and they have a gap year. They have a year off to, take a year off of school and go and explore the world or explore themselves or go work or whatever and just before they go and study. But I left school and went in.
They can go anywhere, and that was the British Commonwealth. At some point, they get so Australians can go up to England, English go, and Canadians and whatever. Everybody connected that way. Yeah, I never knew you called it the gap year.
It's meant to be the gap between school and university.
Okay, so all right, we're gonna take a break there because I'm just gonna say, I mean, your life has taken a drastic turn to the better.
Yeah, you can say that. Yeah, definitely.
But the point needs to be made here that you wouldn't be able to talk about the things that you do or influence people the way you do had you not been through all that really immature masculine stuff. For all intents and purposes, when young men are growing up, that they're taught to be the way you were, and you were kind of a master at it.
I was pretty good at it, that's for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You look like somebody who probably was a party boy, and somebody who could get over this way or that, based on looks or based on how you built your body up, or based on the markings on your body or your haircut. There's a lot of things that somebody could look at you and go well, look at that dude, and actually that's what I did when I first saw you. I saw you at the airport on the North Island in New Zealand, and I was like, well, I wonder who this guy is. Very interesting, you look interesting, like somebody, you want to talk to and go what are you up to? So, but I feel like you took a very tremendous turn, and that's what we'll talk about next. Let's not go too much into the history of it, but let's just talk about it a little bit and then